For many RVers, having a good, solid internet connection while camping is really crucial. So here's what you'll need to know to find the best RV solution for you. With the right setup and gear, you can have internet access almost anywhere, whether boondocking or relaxing poolside at an RV resort, even if you're working remotely or road schooling and self-schooling for your kids. You can power through Zoom calls, stream videos while camping just about everywhere. So this video will be interesting for you to see all the various options that are available while you are RVing. First things first, what is RV Wi-Fi? As far as the internet goes, Wi-Fi in your RV works just like Wi-Fi anywhere else. You have a phone, you have a tablet, you have computers, or any other Wi-Fi enabled device. You connect it to the Wi-Fi and then browse a stream like you would at home. The biggest difference is where the original signal comes from. Internet solutions for a Wi-Fi are a little more complicated than for a stationary home and need careful consideration. There are a few different ways you can stay connected during your travels. The two primary options are using cellular data from the provider, like AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, or a signal pull from a local Wi-Fi network. This guide will explain how these options work, what those confusing internet terms mean, the gear you need to maximize your connection, and which Wi-Fi setup is right for you and your RV. So the first thing you have to do is determine the best RV solution for you and to think about the level of connectivity you'll need. Deciding how you're going to use the internet while on the road is one of the most important considerations before you purchase anything. So how will you use the internet? Will you just be using it for email and checking in with friends on Facebook? Will you be working from an RV and have heavy data use? Will you have obligatory video conferences such as Zoom calls? Do your kids enjoy playing video games? Are video calls with family and friends from home a real must? These are things that you have to explore, and you can probably get most of it from using campground Wi-Fi or even using your phone as your mobile hotspot. During our first year on the road, we were able to get by with minimal internet setup using a Verizon hotspot off our phone with limited data. For us, it wasn't a huge deal if we were disconnected since we weren't working full time. But as time went on, we found that we needed more reliable connection. And with a YouTube channel, we needed lots of data to be able to upload and download the videos that we have prepared. A simple Verizon Jetpack just didn't allow us to be connected as strongly as we needed and have the data that we needed. So if you plan on streaming movies and music, you'll need more gear, more data for reliable internet connections. These days, you need to check your email, your work from your businesses, you're uploading files, you're streaming podcasts, you're recording interviews, as I do many times, and sometimes you just unwind with your favorite TV shows. All this together adds up to 125 gigabytes of usage to 200 to 300 every single month, and that you can't get using a hotspot off your phone. Most people are really surprised how quickly you use data when you're streaming something. I mean, I blew through 15 gigabytes on a mobile hotspot in just 3 days. Recent camper just told me. And I said, well, you don't have enough data. So if you're working from the road, then you need internet access for homeschooling. Then you should be prepared to use about 100 gigabytes of data per month, which is why an unlimited plan is likely the best option. This way, you don't have to worry about the amount of data you're using throughout the whole month. If you're enjoying this video so far and the information that I've given you, please consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, hit that like button, make a comment below. We'd love to hear your reaction. We answer all our comments directly, and it really helps us to build that channel. You might be wondering why you just can't use the Wi-Fi network at campgrounds. Well, sadly, most private campgrounds will have Wi-Fi, and it's not very good. And many RV parks offer free internet, but getting a strong signal in your rig can be a different story. If you go into the office, then you'll get a strong signal. If you're parked out on the campground far from the office, then the signal may not be so good. Campgrounds are getting better at upgrading their Wi-Fi because it's becoming so ubiquitous in our lives but you can't count on it. So we don't rely solely on Wi-Fi at RV parks. While I view it as a bonus and it works and it's free, campground Wi-Fi just don't have the best reputation. Campground Wi-Fi is slow for many, many reasons. There are a lot of metal RVs, a lot of stuff between you and your device and the Wi-Fi router. The signal gets degraded and weakened. And of course, the more people that are on the network, the slower the signal. So if you're in the evening and you're watching TV or streaming some movies, everybody else in the park is doing the same thing. So there isn't enough bandwidth to be able to handle that. And if you're in rural and remote campground locations, you may rely on satellite internet or fixed wireless internet, but tends to be slower, and you might have something like Starlink, which gets into real serious, and we'll talk about that later. Generally, you can expect campground Wi-Fi to be a lot slower than your home Wi-Fi, or even other public Wi-Fi sources like coffee shops. Many times I've parked outside of a McDonald's to try to upload or download when I was really in a rural area and the signal wasn't very good. So if you need a reliable signal, you need to invest in a little extra gear to have that on your rig and have it available to you all the time. We can make the most of campground Wi-Fi by purchasing a Wi-Fi extender or a repeater. The extender helps by rebroadcasting the campground's internet signal throughout your rig. But most likely the signal weakens before it reaches your RV, so a reliable a Wi-Fi repeater will just give you an internet speed that's not that very good. So don't expect to find public Wi-Fi network working very well when you're boondocking, because that'll never happen. Instead, you'll need to stay connected with cellular data, and that's also if it's available. RV Wi-Fi can vary greatly when you're boondocking. I've been able to operate my business as normal with just 2 bars of cell phone signal, and other times it doesn't work at all. And if you really, really need it and you're doing a business meeting or you're doing a Zoom meeting, you really want to have that strong, reliable signal, and so it doesn't fail on you. If the signal isn't quite as strong as you need to be, you check your settings in your apps and make sure you're using as little data as possible by closing them down. And of course, with families and other people, you have many, many devices connected to the Wi-Fi, and that will degrade your signal. Video players such as YouTube and Netflix, you can choose a lower resolution. So rather than getting an HD, you might have it in a 1080p or 170 or something smaller. And if your email client is loading slowly, then maybe you can select the option to load it as basic as only an HTML. So let's talk about some terms you should know for Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi solutions. To help you understand the terminology around Wi-Fi and RVing, here's an explanation of the most common internet terms and the gear options that are available. Speed test. No matter what the source, how fast your internet is running ultimately determines what you can do on it. Internet speed doesn't necessarily relate to the number of bars or the cell phone signal or the level of Wi-Fi, so it's helpful how to know to text it. I use Ookla speed test. Google has a speed test function. To use it, just type speed test into this Google search bar and click the blue Run Speed Test button on the results page. You can also use a speed testing website, such as I do, called Ookla. You'll need 1 Mbps or megabits per second down for basic internet needs, like checking email, but you want 4 or 5 bips down for streaming at the minimum. Download speeds vary, so don't be surprised if your results say 10 bips down and they're really less than 1 up for uploading, so that gets really slow. Hotspot. This is the device that creates an internet connection from cellular data. It's just like home. You'll have a password-protected Wi-Fi network on your phone. Various internet companies and cellular providers use the term hotspot differently. T-Mobile refers to its devices as mobile hotspots. Verizon calls it Verizon Jetpack. AT&T uses the term Unite, and Netgear calls its hotspots device Nighthawk. While they all have different names, they do the same job. of supplying an internet signal. Most of these devices cost $100 or more. So your smartphone can be used as a hotspot. This is often referred to as tethering. Tethering your phone for Wi-Fi tends to be slower than using a dedicated hotspot device, such as a MiFi. But it can work in a pinch, and if you're planning on boondocking or streaming regularly, tethering isn't a practical long-term solution, and you'll most likely need to get yourself a hotspot device. The next term I want to talk about is booster. Typically referring to boosting cellular data, these devices are designed to increase your signal from 1 bar of service to 2 or maybe even 3. Cell phone boosters enhance the signal, increase the internet speeds. This means the difference between getting 3 or 5 megabits down. But these devices, they can cost between $30 and some of the good ones with big antennas upward of $500. Again, depends upon your own personal need. The next terms are repeaters, extenders, or Wi-Fi rangers. These terms are essentially interchangeable. A Wi-Fi ranger rebroadcasts by repeating and extending the existing signal inside your RV. This solves a common connectivity problem when you're too far away from the campground's Wi-Fi router, or there's too much interference with all that metal between your RV and the router. A repeated device can significantly enhance your internet speeds when using campground Wi-Fi. Some newer RVs have these devices already built in. My Tiffin has a range extender built in, and it works very, very well. Now let's talk about routers. Most people use a router and a modem connected to a professionally installed cable in their home. So you have the router, the cable is connected into it, and then the router can broadcast a signal to any of the devices that you log in on. While this isn't the typical internet setup you see on the road, you can use a router in your RV Wi-Fi setup as well. I use a PepWave, and the reason I use the PepWave is that when I have my signal coming in, whether it's from a Wi-Fi device or whether it's from Starlink or whether it's from the campground, I point the router to that signal, and then all the devices in my RV are pointing to the PepWave. So every time I come to a campground, I don't have to reset all my devices, whether it's my Ring doorbell or whether it's my 2 or 3 TVs, whether it's any of the devices that actually use internet on my coach, they're all pointed to the PepWave. So when I point the PepWave to the signal that I'm getting, then it's always there, and it makes it much, much easier. The next term I want to talk about is unlimited data. If you don't have an unlimited data plan, you have limits on how much the internet you can use. Most RVers will find that unlimited data is a more economical option than limited data, where you pay for usage in addition to the other fees, and like a protection fee that prevents you from going over your data limit. But when even some plans that say unlimited data, it's really not unlimited. It's unlimited at a certain speed. So when you use a certain amount of data and you hit that quota in the month, the current month, then they will throttle you back and your speeds will be significantly slower. You'll still have unlimited data, but you don't have the speed that you really might need to operate. And that's called throttling. Throttling is when a cell phone provider slows down your signal. This can happen, as I said, when you've reached a certain data threshold, or if the tower is overloaded. For instance, you're at a football game, or you're near a NASCAR race where there are a lot of people connected at once to that tower that's close by. Throttling can be difficult to avoid. To help alleviate the problem, I use 2 different carriers. I have Verizon and I have T-Mobile, and now and I can swap from one network to another if one slows down. But now I also have Starlink, which really solves most of my problems. So some of the common Wi-Fi solutions that once you've understood where and how you plan and how you're going to use the internet, it's time to decide the type of Wi-Fi solution that's best for you. So let's walk through it. Cellular data. This is by far the most internet connection option for full RVers. For this RV Wi-Fi options, purchase a hotspot from your data provider of choice. If you plan on boondocking or spending time in national parks or on public lands, you'll need to rely on cellular data. or satellite data if you get the Starlink plan. And I have some videos on Starlink, and I'll be linking them below and maybe up, I guess up there, and you'll be able to look at those about how to get Starlink. But while some remote campsites have decent Verizon and AT&T coverage, other remote areas will not, and this is where a cell phone booster comes in handy. Recently, I was in a national park in Colorado. I had absolutely no signal at my campsite, and I had to go and drive up the hill and get to the top of the mountain, and then I was able to connect. Really a pain in the neck. So I have a cell phone booster, a Wi-Fi booster, which I purchased on Amazon. And the booster has a directional antenna, meaning it needs to face in the direction of the cell tower. And on your phone, you can have an app, which is a cell tower finder, and shows you which direction is the strongest tower. For a little higher price, you can get what I have, which is the WeBoost. It's a 4GX RV booster. To install it, I had to drill a hole in my roof and run cables to the roof. It worked very well. Because of the installation process and the cost, it might not be the best thing for you. You can achieve the same results with a less expensive device, and you can find some of those on the resources of Mobile Internet Resource Center, for instance, has a lot of information on that type of Wi-Fi. For basic internet needs, you use the Wi-Fi Park, but sometimes you'll find a strong enough connection for streaming services, but it isn't always reliable and predictable. If you want to use campground Wi-Fi, need faster speeds, then install a Wi-Fi extender for your RV. Cost a few dollars, but it might be worth it. In addition to RV parks, you can also find free public Wi-Fi in parking lots and businesses like McDonald's and Lowe's and Starbucks. I use the Allstays app to find a parking lot camping and check if Wi-Fi is possible, because a lot of these apps give you a Wi-Fi rating. If you plan on staying in RV parks with and campgrounds, look for the amenities on their websites as well. Public Wi-Fi, be careful, can be less secure and easily hacked, which makes your identity and your information vulnerable, so be careful. If using public Wi-Fi, avoid logging online to banking accounts and other accounts that you want to be hacked. Also, you might look into a VPN. Now, the biggest and the best solution, certainly a little more expensive, but if you need it, it's certainly reliable, is Elon Musk's new Starlink, which has been in testing over the past couple of years, but now it's becoming ubiquitous. It's created such a buzz with the idea that you can have high-speed internet anywhere in the world. So Starlink is up and running now, and it has the ability to get an RV one and get a roaming one. So if you go to starlink.com, you can see many of the options available. Also on the internet, on YouTube, there are a lot of information on Starlink, and I won't go into it. I have a couple of fixes that I have, and you can get them on my channel, but I would leave it up to somebody who's done a real better job of that. So if you have a long-term stay where you really need good Wi-Fi and cellular data, then Starlink may be the best solution for you. Of course, because of its size and its manual setup and the dishy that comes with it, it can be cumbersome. And remember, Starlink only works with a clear view of the sky. If you're in trees or a heavily wooded area, Starlink will not work. And if you're going to cross borders with your RV, then the best solution is to use Sky Roam, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, and you'll have to look that up for yourself. Like with anything else, make sure you read the manufacturer's installation guides, that you read it, reread it before you start drilling holes and so on, and make sure you have the required tools and the accessories to install it, but also have the expertise to do it. Your router and your antenna, which may come housed in one unit, may have to be attached to your roof of your rig. And every time you drill a hole in your rig, I got a little apprehensive about it, because that you don't want to cause any leaks. So you got to be really careful. And sometimes there are a few screws that you need to screw in, and make sure where you're drilling the hole and where you're putting the screws in And be sure to seal these holes with approved sealant that works on your roof type. Different Wi-Fi product manufacturers may recommend different mounting location on the roof. Make sure you have a clear line of sight. Make sure it's not interfering with the air conditioning or other antennas you might have there. No single internet option will cover you 100% of the time. So to stay fully connected, you'll have to have a combination of all the things that I've spoken about. We have a number of cell phones. We have Verizon. We have T-Mobile. I also have a thing called TravelFi. And TravelFi is a service where you get unlimited internet for $29 a month up to 100 gigabytes. And you might want to look into that as another hotspot portability. So I hope this has been helpful. There's a lot to learn. Do your research. Make sure you know what your needs are and the various solutions that are available. So thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. You hit that notification bell. Give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, give us a thumbs up, and make a comment.